A majority of the people on this planet are those who face reality. Most of the people that you know, or probably even yourself, you're one of these individuals who sees the world as it is, accepts the world as it is, and therefore confronts the world as it is. Then there are those, many of which, numb reality or look to escape reality. Sometimes these two groups can be the very same, right? You are facing reality, but sometimes it is just too difficult to face that reality. And so, what do? You numb your reality. Then there is a small minority, tiny little group, oftentimes called delusional, sometimes called lucky, probably even more often called lucky. And these are the individuals who create reality. Now, what's the difference between the individual who faces reality and those who choose to create reality? Is it that the ones who create have some type of special superpower? These individuals are the chosen ones, quote unquote, the ones who are separate from, the ones who are other than the rest of the world? Well, I used to think that. As a matter of fact, I used to be the type of individual who believed that if you were not quote unquote facing reality, there was, first of all, something wrong with you, right? You were completely delusional. You were lost. You didn't know what the hell you were talking about. And to be honest, you had your head in the sand and probably didn't care about the real problems of this world. That is until I became one of the very tiny minority of individuals once I started to realize and accept exactly what not only I was, but what all of us are. So let's get into creating your reality. Now, in order for us to get in a conversation about creation of reality, we must first confront the fact that a majority of us are living in a, how do I say this? We're living a lie. We have lived a life for a majority, if not the entirety of our lives, where we have bought into the facts as opposed to the truth about life. We've bought into what seems to be normal as opposed to what is actually natural. And so for most of us, we believe that life is just happenstance. Life is happening to us. Life is something we cannot help but, right? It's something that we accept. It's something that we face, as opposed to something that we have some sort of control over. Or actually, let me clear this up. There are those who quote unquote face reality that do believe that they have some control. However, the control that they have is minuscule in comparison to the control they do not have. And this is the belief system that most people, most of us have been conditioned to believe. We believe that life is simply happening, whether it's a byproduct of, a big old guy in the sky sitting on a cloud way up high, or it is a byproduct of natural happenstance. Things just happen to fall into place and they just happen that way, and they're just going to continue to happen that way, and we have no say so. So those are oftentimes the two camps that a majority of the acceptors and the facers of reality exist in. Is either there is something out there that has control, or there is something within my biology that has control. But surely it cannot be me, this one, this individual entity. There's no way that this one can have power. And this does make sense at some level, right? It seems to be rational, because when you look at the results that most people are getting as a byproduct of their lives. I mean, when I looked at a majority of the results, the outcomes that I'd gotten as life circumstances or the conditions of my life, there is no way that somebody would have chosen to experience some of these things, right? Surely I would not have chosen to experience any sort of suffering, any sort of grief. I would not have chosen to experience any sort of lack and scarcity and deprivation. There's no way I could have chosen that unless I did. I would like cue in dramatic music, but you know me, I don't do the extras. I'm just here to have the conversation with all. That's it. I might throw some of my production behind at some point, but right now we just straight to the point. But just imagine dramatic music kicked in. What if not only do you have a little bit of control, a little bit of say so within this life experience, but what if within your own personal reality, now I'm not talking about the next person's, I'm talking about yours. What if in your own life experience, you were the creator, as in fact, you are not only creator because you desired to be. You were whether or not you accepted it. And that the life experience that you are currently living is not a byproduct of, happenstance or, the solo moments of when you choose to do something and then there's something that just happens or things that happen, but instead, which is the reality of the situation, which is the truth of the situation, is that you are always the one creating this reality. Now, you may think me crazy. You may think me damn right insane for saying something like this. And you may already be ready to argue me up and down and call me all kinds of maybe a heretic, maybe a lunatic or some type of tick, right? Just a damn tick, just annoying, straight up annoying for saying something like that. But honestly, I get it. I would have been in the exact same camp not too long ago because not too long ago, I could not accept that reality. I became okay with the idea that the good things in my life that happened, surely I chose, but not the bad things, not the things that I did not desire, until I came to realize how it was I was actually creating. Now, even for those who have come to this understanding of, let's say, manifestation, the law of attraction, etc., I believe that there is much truth that is, now available to the collective conscious. However, there is still a lot of misinformation, aka fake news, right? There's still a lot of fake news about how this actually works. And so there is still a mass acceptance that surely we create only when we desire to create, when we fix our solo attention on the thing that we want most, right? That we create the things that we place our mental energies on. And there is a half truth in that statement. The full reality is that we create based upon the energy that we focus. Now, that may seem like just some woo-woo wording. It's just something that people, say when they don't have a rational answer or a quote-unquote scientific answer. But guess what? Even the scientists are beginning to come to an understanding that, at the core, at the essence of everything that exists, there is something called energy. It is just the most foundational element of everything. Beyond the atom, beyond the subatomic particles, there is this thing called energy. And at this energetic level, there is something that they now call the field, or the energetic field, that all things are connected to. Imagine that. And this energetic field responds based upon our own energy. Now, when we talk about energy, we're simply talking about what we experience as emotion, energy in motion, right? That's how we experience or translate energy. That's how we understand. The language of energy is the language of emotion. And so for most of us, we've been raised to believe that feelings are something that's just happening to us. Feelings is something we can't control, and a feeling is oftentimes something that you must avoid because it is not critical, it is not logical, and therefore it is the enemy of our soul. At least that was me, right? Maybe that was just me. But feelings or emotions are seen as something that is a negative, especially those that are obviously quote unquote negative emotions, when in reality, they're nothing more than a language per se. They're nothing more than a reader, a feeder, they're like notifications. Like if you're on your phone right now and you got a notification, beep, 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 something's going on, that's an alert system. Our emotions are an alert system. They are an indicator as to something that needs our attention. And so when we have negative emotions, it is alerting us to something we are fixated and focused on energetically that is not serving us. And then the opposite is the exact opposite, right? It seems complex only because we are just used to a different language. We're used to the language of matter on matter. Like we're used to, struggling and fighting and wrestling the physical creation, not understanding that things happen at an energetic level first, and then they manifest or they present themselves in physical. An example of this is this microphone, and this keyboard and the table behind me, and the two things behind me, and the painting that my girl did. Beautiful painting, as always. And that thing and those all the things around me started at an energetic level. They started as thought or an emotional impulse, per se. And then there was inspiration that then turned to perspiration. I'm playing. There was inspiration that turned into some sort of action, and that action led to physical manifestation, right? So it started, even if it's a physical thing and we're seeing and experience it in the physical, it started at an quote unquote energetic level. So that's why I said there's a half truth, because yes, there is much truth to be said in the fact that we, in our thoughts, our mentality, are creating. But what most people think as thoughts is quite basic. We think thoughts are just these things that happen in the brain. We think this processing machine is the entirety of life. We think everything is happening between, these two hemispheres right here. We think this is it. Yet at some level, all of us recognize that we can, quote unquote, think beyond the mind. There is a capability to imagine and envision and to receive seemingly messages that are outside of just the framework of our brains. Now, our brains are powerful things. They are stores of information. But a conversation we often don't have is what the heart is in this whole thing. Like, we think it's just a mechanism pumping blood through the body. Absolutely not. The heart is an intelligence in and of itself. As a matter of fact, they say the heart's level of intelligence is, infinitely greater than the mind's intelligence. And I'm not talking about like a quasi woo-woo intelligence. I'm talking about a real intelligence. There's information being passed from the heart out and back in, right? The heart is emitting and the heart is transmitting as well as receiving messages. In the same way the brain is just that the heart does a better job of it. The brain is much better as a storage unit of information, past information, then it projects into the future. But there is this substance in the air, this thing that is beyond ourselves, but yet is ourselves. It's that part of you that is listening to this and is comprehending this and is able to visualize, that is able to perceive, right, at a deeper level. It's the thing that separates us from the machine. Right now, I'm playing. Yeah, it's always going to separate us from the machine, period. There is something that separates us. There's a higher ability, a higher faculty, a higher function. And this function goes by many names: the higher mind, the intuition, our spirit, whatever it may be. There is something that we recognize that is us, and just as much as, if not, it is the true essence of us. Some will call it, the observer or the watcher, if you're in like, Taoism or Buddhism or something of that nature. And so, again, back to the point at hand, there are those who have now recognized, small minority who fully accepted and are now living in accordance with the natural law, that we are focusing energy into matter. We are focusing energy into life. And so each time we give our focus on something external and make that to be the reality, right, through our quote unquote belief system, which is just thoughts that we continue to think, which is just energy we continue to put in the very same focus. When we live in such a way, we continue to create the very same external reality, right? We continue to make the same matter appear. So we think, oh, I'm just living in limbo. Things, I'm stuck. Nothing ever changes. When in reality, everything is in constant change. Everything is fluctuating. Everything is always going to be changing. That's the one constant in all the universe, is that change is inevitable. It's just that things continue to change back into the very same looking and seeming situations and circumstances for a majority of us, because we have learned to use the external as our focal point. Now, what am I saying? Am I saying that, if I just look inside my literal self, then that's going to change something? No. Instead, it is about creating a future. In the same way somebody would create, a keyboard before the existence of a keyboard. How do they do that? Well, first they must have had some sense of inspiration within themselves. Maybe they went through some life experiences that show them what they did and did not desire. And from that place emerges a desire to create something. Maybe this burning desire to express music. And so, finally they materialized something that would allow them to do exactly that. Right? Because there was a point in our history when this didn't exist, and then different versions of it never existed. This microphone I'm speaking into, everything that is around me at some point did not, quote unquote, exist in the material. And this is the exact same principle that stands for the actual conditions of our lives. Most of us have bought into the ideas, and they are ideas just like everything else is. The ideas, the ideology, or the identity of scarcity, of lack, of deprivation, of poverty. And you're looking at one of them right here. I simply accepted and bought into this reality that I was facing, that, the world is just a place that is filled with lack, which is oxymoron, right? It's filled with lack. It's got a whole lot of lack in it, right? It's got a whole lot of very little in it. I believe that to be truth. I believe that, well, poverty is a condition based upon reality as opposed to based upon an idea that we continue to focus into play. And, a lot of people like to get offended. We like to take offense in a lot of things. And we'll hear something like that and say, oh, well, but what about the people who are struggling X, Y, and Z? This is the thing. I stopped arguing with folks. I stopped trying to convince folks of anything and go back and forth, because you can only understand from your level of comprehension. And, when you're going into a space where there's an opposing ideology or opposing idea, you're looking to preserve that idea. So you're going to fight tooth and nail to keep that. Unless you're really ready to accept truth and you want something different in your life, then you're going to continue just to, regurgitate the same information to protect where you are in order to feel a sense of familiarity, and basically just to repeat the same patterns over and over again, right? So I get it. So I'm not going to fight you on this, but I am going to say it as it is, because I'm not the one to mince words. I'm not the one to mince words. So poverty is an idea that we have bought into at a scale or a mass level. We have accepted as the only natural outcome. And so for a majority of people, this is the reality. I was born in what they call a third world country, which was at one point a first world country. It was a country thriving. Then after some circumstances and conditions and, a lot of reconditioning of the people, ideological shifts, victim mentality and things as such, right? Personal victimhood really kind of took the country over. And that, started at the most influential parts of the society. Again, influence is a powerful word in all this, by the way, because sometimes we think, well, you can't help it because you're born into it. You're born into influence. Influence is an opportunity to choose. Influence may be very persuasive, but it is still a choice in a place you can put your focus, right? But nevertheless, most people just gave their ability to focus, their ability to think, to feel over to the external. And so they got the same results that, the external was presenting to them. And so this country turned from a seeming utopia, right, within Africa into a quote unquote third world nation, 80% unemployment, and such is the story. Now, I do believe that there's going to be a complete shift, because there are going to be individuals who are able to create a new reality. They're going to fix something into reality. Just like here, I live in the States currently. I've lived here for the last 18 years almost. And this place was an experiment. It was dreamt into reality. It was focused into reality. This idea of what America even is, whatever your ideological stance may be, that still stands as truth. It was a small group, a small cohort of dudes who, wanted something greater than the thing they had experienced before. And so they fixated on that vision, and, one thing happened after another. And most people would just, highlight the physical thing that happens. We just think, oh, because they fought these people and then they did this thing and did that thing. They don't acknowledge the reality that things start to manifest and things start to align with a focused energy, with a powerful focused energy, right? The more focused and concentrated the energy is, the faster the thing is materialized into the physical. That's a law of manifestation one-on-one. So when, you're having these conditions that you do not desire that keep happening fast as hell, it's because your momentum in that space is just incredible. And you can always shift that momentum. It's difficult, not hard, but it's difficult to do so. It's hard, not difficult, right? Difficult would imply that it's actually like, multi-steps and complex. There's no complexity in it. It's relatively straightforward. It's simply that we're just used to doing what we're used to doing. We are creatures of habit, and the habit that we're used to partaking in is the habit that we're mostly going to partake in. I usually drink out of this exact cup right here. Is it because it's the only cup? No, there's like 50 cups in this house, but this cup right here, I know, right? So much for minimalism. But this cup right here is the one that I almost always pick simply out of habit. I would make 30 excuses for why it's actually this one. I love the straw. I love, the little wood paneling or whatever it is, but it's not always the most convenient. It's not always the most whatever. It's just the one that I pick most often. And I'm okay with that. And when I'm not okay with that, then I will finally shift that habit. And for most of us, that's how we're going through our lives. We will only change something. We only shift our reality once we're so sick and tired of the results that we've been getting, right? But until then, we will not accept the reality of what's actually going on, that we are indeed creators and we're pretending to be facers. Well, we're not. Let me shift that. We're not pretending. We're very much are being quote unquote facers of reality. It's just that we're facing a reality that was already created by somebody. And that somebody was somebody who basically created what somebody else had created, and then the somebodies were actually based on. It's like that's what the generational patterns are, the generational quote unquote curses, like this, this limbo, this never-ending cycle of we're placing our focus in the negative, we're placing our focus in the negative, we're placing our focus in lack, we're placing our focus in inadequacy and fear and scarcity and deprivation and not enoughness, etc. And that continues to create the very same outcomes. Now you may think to yourself, so doesn't that mean that other people have control over your reality? Absolutely not. Because if your energy is focused in something that is higher vibrationally, right? I know we're talking real seeming woo-woo language here. But if your energy or your focus is elsewhere, let's say you're focused truly on prosperity, like your energy is actually in a state of prosperity or abundance, right? In a natural state, as opposed to in this learned state of scarcity and lack, then it doesn't matter what your current conditions may be. If you have that fixed energy, you will eventually find yourself in a place where that energy is now materialized in a multitude of different ways, right? Moolah, cash money, might be one of the ways, but there are a multitude of ways that prosperity is articulated in physical matter, physical reality. So you will find that there might be a child who's born into, these lack, poverty, scarcity type of environments, but has a deep desire and a focus upon wealth, and they end up, literally, magical seeming happenstance. Things happen in their life that they end up in a state of financial prosperity and abundance. And we will think, oh, it's because they were so much more talented than everybody. They were so lucky, right? We love to use the word luck when we can't explain things. When it happens to us, it's not luck, right? But when it happens to somebody else, it is definitely luck. What happens to us, we created our reality. When it happens to somebody else, they just got lucky. That's all that happened, right? Like, it can't be two things. You can't serve two masters. It can't be it's happenstance, but it's also you creating. Those two things cannot stand, because those two things are in direct contradiction to each other. So it is either that we are the ones who are the main influence of creation within our own life experiences, or we are completely subject to life itself. Now, again, when it comes to the actual details of how things happen, this is where the nuance is, right? Because some people think, well, I focused on, a Lamborghini every single day and it didn't happen. Like I said, it's about energy. Universal language is energy. It's not like our language, which is Mandarin or Swahili or, Aborigine or something. I don't even know if that's a language, but it's not language that we understand. We use our language to actually translate that emotional language, that core language. And most of us are very good at lying about it, right? We're very good at covering up what it is that we're actually experiencing with our words. So words aren't always the greatest indicator of what it is that we're actually attracting. Because we could just say to ourselves, well, I'm focused positively, I'm thinking positively, but in truth, energetically, we're not, right? And so you have to start mastering this ability. That's where the difference comes in. It's not that one is born to and the other is not. It's just that some are more in tune and attuned to what they're focused on. And most others are pretty much scattered when it comes to focus and aren't necessarily sensitive to their emotional state. Like, I made an excuse for a majority of my life. I'm just an Aquarius. I'm not that sensitive to emotion. I'm not emotional. I'm just rational. I'm brainy. But yet, I am also human. And to be is to be a translator of energy in motion, emotion, right? It's not to say that I'm highly sensitive as far as, I get my feelings hurt easy, whatever it was. It's not about that. It's to say that I can feel when I am focused mentally on something that is, leading me into something I do not desire as opposed to something I do desire. We all have that, from, the babes to, the ones who are basically on their way out to probably come back all over again as one of them little babies. Every single one of us in every walk of life have this ability. And this is what makes us human. This is what makes us, part of the creator. Some who are religious believe that we are the children of God. Use such terminology, right? Some would say we are the children of the light, or we are one with source, or whatever it may be. So that creative force is a part of us, or the whole of us, and we are the whole of it. And therefore, we have those same characteristics and attributes. It is simply for us to learn exactly how we're doing it and to accept that. And for many of us, there's a fear of accepting that, because what would that first of all mean about how I'm perceived, right? We care so deeply about how people see us. We care so deeply about what people think about us. We care so deeply about what people will say about us if they knew that we are on this woo-woo train. That's a huge fear that most of us hold. We believe that if we're to accept this as reality, then it's going to mean that we're going to be ostracized, rejected. And that's one of the greatest fears we hold. And it's honestly one of the greatest fears that holds us back from doing anything worthwhile within our lives. It stops us from living our true, own, authentic life experience. But once you get over that fear, then now all you're left with really is, okay, then how do I actually play the game of life? As Florence Govo Shin would say, or Novo Shin, or Shovo Shin, or whatever the hell. Florence Shin. How do we play the game of life? How is this game played? And now we get to the basics and the fundamentals of energy and focus of energy, right? And how we use thought to focus energy. So the things that we are thinking, if they are rooted in observing what's going on around us, we're watching the news, we're scrolling through social media, we're listening to drama channels, we're listening to everybody else's opinions. We are putting energy into focus into those ideas. We're feeding those ideas. And as we feed those ideas, that's where we're placing our focus. That focus then creates a life circumstance. And the energetic base is what matters. So if I'm in a peaceful state, I'm going to attract and I'm going to create a life experience based upon peace. There are going to be things that edify my peace. If I'm in a place of fear, then I'm going to have experiences that manifest as that fear. Right? Again, some of us think just because I focus on this specific thing, then I create that specific thing. But that's so soul focused. That's so single-minded. It's so, it doesn't connect all the dots of like the workings of life itself. How life truly manifests is in experience as much as in thought and emotion form and, in interaction and engagements with others. Like, it's not just going to be prosperity coming to you as something in the bank account. It's going to be prosperity in, in the relationships that you have. It's going to be prosperity in how people are showing up in your life experience as much as how you're showing up. But it's going to be opportunities that flood in. It's going to be a multitude. We just thinking from this like very small, minute place, from the processing brain, right? Remember the storage unit. We're thinking from the brain aspect, which is limited. And it's limited on past experiences or, past stories told, past ideations, etc. And it cannot conceive what this higher mind, the true you, understands and knows. The true you, which you can only tap into once you start letting go of, this rehearsed kind of mental activity that we do. And if anybody knows anything about that rehearsed mental activity, it is me, my friend. Of living from this place of, taking past information, projecting in the future, and constantly living in that cycle and in that loop of angst, living in worry, of preparing for the worst, not understanding that my very preparation for the worst is actually creating the grounds for a worst case scenario. Because again, energy and focus creates life. That's the recipe. And that's the video for today. I just wanted to cover the real basics in this one. And, I take deep dives into a multitude of subjects that bring things back to us within this channel, just within my life overall. My music is the same message. Everything I do is the same message. But I really wanted something that was just a foundational, almost like a 101 type of class. I'm not going to call it for dummies because ain't no dummies. There are no dummies out here. I don't care what you call yourself. You are not a dummy. But it is something that I believe we, as a species, as a race, as a collective, are finally getting to understand and accept. And for a long time, we didn't. We weren't willing to. We were okay with a paradigm where things are just happening until we were no longer okay with it, right? Until, that victimhood or that powerless stance was no longer serving us. That illusion is no longer serving us. And now we're stepping into this higher understanding, a true understanding, which is you are the greatest impactor in your entire life experience. You're the greatest influence. And you always have a choice as to where you focus in your energy and what you create. Now, if you care more about, people's acceptance and approval, validation, I got plenty of videos on that, trust me. But if you're focused on that, and that is something that is a greater priority than, you creating your dream life, whatever that may look like, then you're going to remain in the very same place. People pleasing is a hell of a drug, I tell you that. Or validation of others is a hell of a drug. It will keep you in limbo for a lifetime if you allow it to. But once you allow yourself to peel those layers away and truly question why it is you care so desperately about what people think, and, start to validate yourself and realize that you have everything within that you thought you needed from others, then you can free yourself from that and begin to actually play this game in a way that is fun as opposed to concerning, to say the least. Because many of us have been playing this game in a very concerning matter. We've been playing this game stressed the hell out, and we don't have to do that. It doesn't have to be a struggle. It doesn't have to be a fight. It can be if we choose for that to be. If we want to paint life out to be that, then it can very much manifest as that type of experience as well. But it can as easily be ease, and it can as easily be an enjoyable experience. And enjoyment comes in a multitude of forms. I'm not talking about just necessarily pleasurable, which is just finding any instant gratification. I'm talking about like true joy at the core. It can really be that type of experience if you let it be, and if you're willing to accept what the truth is, as opposed to the quote unquote reality that you have come to accept. Sips water.
Fell in love with the moonlight. I fell in love with the sunshine. Fell in love with the light. I fell in love with the full moon. Fell in love in the night. I used to be afraid of the dark, a place unknown like a heart in their heart. I used to see my life in the bar. Now the kids unchained, every shackle is lost. 2 steps in the moonlight, 2 step in the daytime. You just know when it feel right. You got a feeling the time's not. See you through those shades that I just threw on. Through my lenses, you just can't do no wrong. I fell in love with myself again. I fell in love with myself. I fell in love with the sunshine. I fell in love with the light. I fell in love with the full moon. I fell in love with the night. I can see the light again. I can see the light. You can see the